welcome to the Fairfax County Library virtual program. My name is Jennifer Eubank, and I'm here to lead a yoga session this morning. This yoga session is pretty standard, and any level of yoga can benefit from this. So if you're new to yoga, I'll give you plenty of instruction to help you through some new poses and new sequences. And if you're a seasoned yogi, there's plenty of opportunities for you to challenge yourself. So with that being said, today's practice, I'd like to focus on rooting. Last week, we focused on establishing a sense of grace and effortlessness to our yoga. This week, we'll focus on rooting and grounding. So I'm going to go ahead and move back to my space now. I'll start a little close up to begin with, and I'll move back to my space and join you. And we'll all start with simply sitting. So we're starting in a seated position today. And if you note, I'm sitting on a blanket because my hips are a little creaky, and sitting on a blanket gives me a sense of stability. And I want that stability so that I can enjoy my seat and do some good work here, right? Some good play and some good work. So if you need a blanket, sit on that blanket, and we'll start first by rooting into our seat. So maybe close your eyes, or maybe keep them open, you decide, and take your mind into your two sits bones. And maybe you need to wriggle from sit bone to feel them. They're pretty hard. Feel them solid, evenly solid on whatever surface you're sitting on. So you're rooting into the ground. And then root into your body by drawing your belly in and lifting your sternum. So you're rooting in your seat and you're rooting into your body. And you can put your hands on your knees if you haven't already. And let's stay here for just a few moments and notice how this makes you feel. Rooting into the earth and rooting into the strength of your body and connecting those two roots to give you even more sit-up power. And then as you're ready, take your mind inside and connect with your breathing. And just notice your inhale and notice your exhale. We breathe through the nose in yoga, and we can find a sense of rooting through our breath. Our breath is always there for us, 24/7, no matter what. And we can gain calm and grace and ease from our breath, like we focused on last week. We can find a sense of power and connection and rooting with our breath. So just a couple of more breaths like this, just noticing your inhale, noticing your exhale. Try to keep the mouth closed and breathe with the nose. That's easier on the nervous system, calms the body, prepares you for challenge. And as you're ready, start to open our eyes. And I've turned my hands down. So when I first started, my hands were open, receiving this good energy. Now that we're getting ready to start, I'm going to put my hands down because I can root into my hands and find a little bit more root and grounding power. And I need that for this first movement, hip circles. So you start when you're ready and go round and round and stay in the same direction. I'll tell you when to change direction. Let's just go round and round. Maybe close the eyes, maybe keep them open. You decide. Try to keep the mouth closed and breathing in and out through the nose. And imagine that you're drawing a line on the earth. A circle, not a line. Well, it is a line, but it's a circular line. So maybe close the eyes and imagine that circle that you're drawing on the earth. And that occurs as the body makes constant contact with the lower half as you go round and round. And keeping the hands on the knees reinforces that connection to the earth, that rooting to the earth. And that might give you a little bit more freedom to go bigger and bolder and more expansive. And at some point, find a good pause point, and then we'll switch directions. And we'll draw a new line, a new circle. And maybe at first that circle's more like a spiral, you know? Like those, what was that old toy called? Y'all can tell me at the end, spirographer. I think that's what it was. And you're kind of drawing those constant circles in this direction, breathing all the while, rooting into the ground, rooting into your legs, rooting into the strength of your body, as well as your breath. And then as you're ready, we'll make our way slowly but surely back to center. So now I'm going spiraling around, corkscrewing through to the middle. And then reconnect with your seat. Reconnect with your sits bones, your drawn in belly and your lifted chest. Relax your shoulders. So as you have that lifting, as you have that rooting, we also have that lifting. And we'll get into that a little bit more next week. And then as you're ready, bring your hands out to the sides and stay rooted in your sits bones. And inhale, lift the arms up, and exhale, bring them back down. And stay rooted in your seat and rooted in your body. And it's almost as if the arms are floating up and down, because the body is so strong in its connection to the earth and its connection to the torso and the core, all the muscles surrounding the spine. You can just float those arms up and down. Let's go one more time. Inhale them up and exhale them back down. And then hang out here for a breath or two and just notice if anything has changed in your torso. Not just the front, but the back as well and the sides. And then let's do a few shoulder rolls. So lift the shoulders up, squeeze the shoulder blades in the back together towards the spine, and then down. So up, squeeze together and down. Inhale as you lift up, exhale as you squeeze together and down, and stay rooted in your seat and rooted in your body as you do this. You might get a little bit more freedom in those shoulders. And we'll do one more. And now we're back to a nice stable seat. And as you're ready, bring those arms up overhead. And then bring one hand down and put it in line with your hip. And then reach up and then curve over to that side. And stay rooted in both sits bones and rooted on that hand. And let that help you find some leverage to reach a little bit deeper and a little bit further. And then as you're ready, next time you inhale, come up and over to the other side. Land the hand in line with your hip. So that hand is in line with this hip, and my shoulders are stacked one over the other, and they're stacked pretty much over that hip. So I'm lining things up and rooting into my seat. And we'll make our way over to the other side. We'll do it one more time each side. Take your time, use your breath to find your expansion. And use your breath to make your way to the other side. Feel free to let an exhale out with your mouth every now and then, because that's very liberating. And we'll meet back in the center and notice if anything in your seat root and in your body root, anything changing? Are you feeling stronger and mightier in your seated mountain pose, more rooted and grounded. Just notice. And then as you're ready, let's go ahead and come onto hands and knees. And we'll do first find your table. And here, the hands under the shoulders and the knees under the hips. And take time to make sure that that is intact. And that's kind of rooting too, finding that the right shape and the right structure. And spread your fingers nice and wide and press into the first two fingers a little bit more than the outside fingers, and put a little bit more weight in the back of the body, and that will take pressure. All these things help take pressure off those wrists and keep the elbows soft and the belly drawn in. And all these things can help root your body and to the ground and root your strength within itself and get your whole body to play a part here, and then your wrists don't hurt quite as much. So examining those roots and starting from the ground up goes a long way in helping you enjoy your yoga and stay safe in your yoga. And once we've established that we've got a good, strong table, then we can start some work in it and start our cats and cows and round our spine towards the front of the body and round our spine towards the back of the body and go back and forth. And as you go back and forth, notice the weight in the knees and notice the weight in the hands. And maybe change that a little bit. So I've got a couple of rounds, I'm putting a little bit more weight in my knees, which brings me back a little bit more. And that kind of changes my roots and changes the experience. And then a couple times I'll put a little bit more weight in the front and see what those roots are doing for me. And if you experiment with that and you don't like it and you want everything to be even between the front and the back and between the left and the right, you can certainly do that. And then as you're ready, let's come back to a table. And then let's sit back for just a moment. This is called hero's pose, when we sit back on our bum and we can take a little rest in our wrists and our fingers. So anytime you need a rest when we're on our hands and knees, always feel free to come back into this pose and do some wrist work. And if you want to stay here for a long time and that's tough for you, you could take a block and put it in between your thighs and sit on the block for hero pose. This is a nice way to stretch out your quadriceps, and it's a classic meditation pose as well. So whenever you're ready, we can come back to our table pose, and let's explore our bird dogs again. We did these last week, and we did them last week with an idea towards finding a sense of grace and a sense of effortless effort. This week, we'll approach them with our root minds. So really draw the belly in. Find that good table. That's your first root. Spread the fingers nice and wide and put that weight into the knees and then the hands and draw the belly in and find those nice roots. And then when you're ready, use an inhale to lift one arm up and keep it up for a couple of breaths. So we'll just keep it up and try to keep everything still and facing the same direction. Hips are facing the floor, shoulders are facing down, and then use an exhale to bring it back down. And root into your table foundation, and as you're ready, use an inhale to bring the arm up on the other side. Keep it strong, keep it steady, and then as you're ready, we can use an exhale to bring it down. If you need to shake a little bit and regroup in your table, do that. And then as you're ready, we'll do the same thing with the legs. So root into your table, root into your belly, root into your body, Use an inhale to extend one leg out behind you and keep it straight. Make sure both hips are still facing the floor as you do this, and the shoulder, you're still parallel to the floor. And then when you're ready, we'll bring it back in. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Root into your table, root into your body, slowly with control, lift that leg up, keep everything facing the same way. We just simply brought that leg up, so we don't turn the hips or the shoulders or anything. And as we're ready, we bring it back in, and then let's all take a little rest. Sit back in heroes and breathe as you shake out your hands. And then when you're ready, let's do it with both an arm and a leg. So find your table, root into your body, root into your breath, and use an inhale to lift one arm and the opposite leg up. And stay here for a few breaths. And keep rooted, and keep strong, and keep as still as you can. And whenever you want to bring everything back in, bring everything back in. And reconnect with your table. And then reconnect with that strength that you need to go to the other side. So whenever you're ready, come up on the other side, one arm and one leg. And see if you can draw one long line between that hand and that leg. There's width between the two, but it's almost as if they're making one long, continuous, uninterrupted line. So do that 2 more times each side. Rest whenever you need to, wriggle out. You can always come back and shake out your hands. And we'll each do 2 more long, static, long-held bird dogs. You decide how long you want to keep it up. You decide when you want to bring it down. Try to do at least 2 or 3 breaths. Use an inhale to lift up into it. Use an exhale to settle into those roots and strength and structure. And use a couple of breaths to hold it. And as you're ready, use the breath to make your way back down. And remember, shake it out. And you can kind of come back if you want. And we'll all meet back in a child's pose. So whenever you're ready, after you've done those 3, if you'd like to do some of those rocking horses that we've done in the past, you can do those. And land eventually in a puppy and wag your tail if you'd like to. Or you can bypass your puppy and take it all the way down to child's. And you can do a little bit of all of these things. In child's pose, my hips are on the floor, my head is on the floor. I'm going to bring my hands on my back, on my sacrum, the part of the spine in between the hips. And stay here for a few breaths. And then I'm going to extend a little bit more because I really like the length that I can get in this pose. Lengthen the spine and the arms. And then eventually, let's make our way up into a downward facing dog. And we've talked a lot about downward facing dog in the past few weeks. And today I want to approach it with that idea of rooting and using the root to help you find your way into your downward facing dog. So we'll lift up in our first dog and we'll spend just a little time kind of playing with it and finding our way and lengthening and strengthening. So you need at least a few breaths in a casual dog to kind of make your way. And if you want, you could always come back down into table and rest in child's pose for a few breaths after you explore your first dog. And you can turn your exploration dog into a couple of mini dogs. And then when we get to the main goal of our dog today, and our main goal is getting those feet all the way down to the floor. So we've talked about that. How if, I'll show you a quick demonstration. If you're in your downward facing dog and your feet are rising up in the floor, off of the floor, that's not as rooted as you could be. And what that does is that brings you to the front of the body, and that puts weight on the front of your body, and that can wreak havoc with your wrists, your elbows, and your shoulders. So what we want to do is we want to come to the back of the body a little bit more and bring those feet down. And that can be really hard if your hamstrings in the back are tight. If you can't get your heels all the way to the floor, it's undoubtedly because of these hamstrings that are tight. And you can do some things to loosen up and lengthen those hamstrings, like do more downward facing dogs, or you can do some other work. And maybe next week I'll make the hamstrings as our focus. So here's a couple of alternatives. Whenever you want to come down and rest in table, rest in child's, rest in puppy. And we'll spend about 3 more minutes exploring our dogs. So you keep doing your dogs, finding your way, and listen to my cues, and maybe glance up every now and then and see what I'm doing and get some new ideas. So here I have a blanket, and I've shown this to you before. The fronts of my feet are not on the blanket. My heels are on the blanket because I need that traction. And so since my heels are on the blanket and the fronts of my feet are on the floor, the mat, my feet are more grounded and rooted. And so I can make them stronger participants in my dog. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do, and I've shown this to you before, but we have some new faces today, and it bears worth repeating. And maybe you haven't tried this version. Maybe you want to try it today. You could get a chair or a table or what have you, and stand up and do your dog this way. And there you know you're guaranteed. Your feet are firm on the floor. And so I'd like eventually everybody to try a version, either this version on the chair, or again, if you've got a table nearby, you can do that. Or you can also use your wall and do your dog like that. I don't want to demonstrate too long because that makes me, yeah. We'll pretend like this is a wall. See, so I could do that. And that's a really nice way to root and ground your downward facing dog and grow it from the feet up. And we'll spend about 10 more breaths exploring your version of dog. Excuse me. And as you're ready, you can come down and take a rest and rest in your child's pose or your puppy. And then eventually we can all come up and stand up. And so you can just come to a standing position. You could use your downward facing dog and turn it into a standing position, however you want. And we'll meet standing up. And let's take a couple of breaths, just kind of lifting our feet up off the ground and back down on the ground. That's a nice way to get grounded and get rooted. Pick the foot up and feel what it feels like to be not grounded and then grounded. And then as you're ready, bring both feet down. And let's find those corners in our feet that we've talked about. Find those 3 corners, one in the heel, one in the base of the big toe, one in the base of the little toe. And put equal pressure in those 3 points. And then lift your toes and widen them and put them down a couple times. And see how that can help you root those feet. And as you root the feet, feel the energy come up those legs. And it naturally just travels up into your belly. and compels me to draw my belly in. I lift my sternum. So we're rooting and lifting at the same time. Those two opposite ideas working together to keep us grounded and strong, yet flexible. And we can start to do things like extend up and hinge and come down, and hinge and come up, and hinge and come back down, and hinge all the way up. And let's do that a few more times. So the feet are always rooted. And we inhale, we reach, we exhale, we bend and hinge. We're always rooted in those feet the whole time. And rooted in our bellies and breath as well. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, come on down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Make sure those corners in the feet are always intact. Let's do one more and notice those corners in your feet the whole time you do this. So we'll explore the feet. As you do this, keep those lines in the feet. Notice if those three corners ever start to diminish a bit. Do you put more weight on one corner than another and thereby weaken one corner? Explore that and see what it does for your sequencing. It might have knocked you a little off balance. It all starts in those feet. So let's explore that idea a little bit further with our chair poses. So again, we find those corners in our feet, draw the energy up into the legs, draw in your belly, lift your sternum. So you've got a nice strong mountain, and then we'll lift the arms up and keep those feet nice and rooted. Bend the knees, hinge the hips as if you're going to sit in a chair. Make sure you're reaching towards the ceiling, not towards the floor, because that hurts the back. We want the core muscles in the belly, the muscles in the ribs, the sides, the back, not just the lower back, but the middle, the upper back, the butt, the legs, all helping. And when you're ready, use an inhale to come back up and use an exhale to float those arms down. So we stay rooted in our body, so the arms just float down. And then our shoulders are not screaming at us because we ask those muscles to lift the arms and to bring them back down. So as you're ready, let's do a couple more. Root into your feet, root into the strength of your body. Use an inhale to lift. Use an exhale to bend knees, hinge hips. Really press into your feet. Press into those roots. And as you press into the roots of the feet, notice it might help you bend the knees a little bit more and go down a little bit further. And then as you're ready, press into those roots and keep the root and your body intact as you lift up. Everything is still intact. Arms just float down. With grace. Let's take a nice deep inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Let's do a forward fold from here. Find your roots. Engage. Inhale, lift. Exhale, swan dive. Hinge at hips. Soften the knees to come down, because you can root and soften at the same time. You want to find that strength. You want to find that ease at the same time. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Let's do one more mini sun salutation. Inhale, lift. Exhale, hinge, come down. Inhale, lift, wide back. Exhale, come down. Back is still wide. Find that spaciousness from left to right as you go up and down. And we'll settle back in a mountain. And find those corners in your feet. Root up into the legs. Root into your belly. Lift your sternum. Feel how this keeps the ribs from caving down on those hips. Feel how that brings space in the sides of your body, the back and the front. So lifting in the front affects the sides and the back as well. And those shoulders, notice how the shoulders get wide. Let's take a couple more breaths. Check our time. We're doing pretty well. Okay, so now I'd like to do a couple of folds. We'll do some forward folds and some half folds, and then we'll explore our pyramid pose, which is a fold, but our legs are positioned differently than a regular fold. So let's do one more fold. Inhale, reach up. Exhale. Stay rooted in those feet and come down and come all the way down and hang out here. And make sure the feet are good and rooted, that you've got those corners and all intact. The legs are strong. I'll turn to the side so you can see me. So the stronger the root, the stronger the legs, maybe the more you can come down. So if your feet are casual and you're like this, but if you keep those feet nice and grounded and root, you can bring that length and strength and space from those feet up. And then as you're ready, root into the feet and lift to that halfway point. And let's stay here for a few breaths. And if you're like this and crunched over, see if you can bring your hands above your knees and bring the shoulders apart and the elbows apart, which flattens your back. So if you're like this, it rounds, but if you bring up, it flattens, widen those hips, widen the shoulders, and this can all start in those rooted feet. So explore with that. Notice what rooting in the feet does for your torso. And use those feet, bend the knees, draw your belly in, use your whole body and your breath to bring you back up safely. So we lift it up from our feet. And now we'll come back. I'll turn back around. We'll come and mount for just a moment. So now we want to apply those same things with the pyramid pose. We're going to make our way back down. So pyramid pose is a lot like a forward fold. A half forward fold or forward fold, your legs are simply in a different position. Instead of being like this, they're like this. Okay? So you might want to have two blocks and set them in front of your mat, and we'll use the short side and face the short side and come into your mountain. And then when you're ready, I'm going to step back on this mountain, this mat. Okay. All right, so you're in mountain. Make sure your feet are wide. They're under your hips and they're under your shoulders. So they're not right next to each other. There's space in between them. And keep that space in between them as you step your right foot back. So when you step that foot back, you still have width. One leg is not in front of the other. The hips are still evenly spaced. And then put your hands on your hips. And then root into that back leg, that back foot. Draw your belly in, lift up, and then hinge at your hips and come to that halfway part. Just like we just did. Now you can put your hands on your hips. You can put your hands on blocks if you have them. And you can stay here in this halfway pyramid pose. Now make sure you got a nice long back and nice long legs, and they're straight, but the knees are slightly soft. So we'll just do a half one. So when you're ready, let's go ahead and lift back up and root into the feet. So root in your feet to come back up. Don't ask the back to lift you up. Ask the feet, those rooted feet, to bring you back up. And then step that foot forward. And now we're back in mountain. Feet are hip-width distance apart. Take a couple of breaths to notice what's going on. And then when you're ready, we step that other foot back. So our feet are like on railroad tracks. Remember, there's width between left and right. So my back foot is on one edge, that edge of my mat. My front foot is on the other edge of the mat. Not on them, but near them, okay? And both of my feet are facing forward. Both of my hips are facing forward. I put my hands on my hips. I root into my feet. I root into my legs. I root into my belly. I lift my chest. Then I hinge and I slowly go. And as I come forward, I'm like, okay, I can feel this leg more. So I'm going to ask this leg to be a little bit more active. And I got to keep it slow so that I can pay attention to that. If I go too fast, I'm not going to notice that this leg is taking more. That's why going slow is nice. And maybe the hands are on the blocks again. Maybe the hands are on the hips or on the back. Root into those feet and lift right back up. And as you lift up, stay here for a breath and then come forward. And as I did that pyramid pose, I found my hair clip that I was looking for. All right, let's do it one more time each side. And this time we'll see if we can go all the way down. You don't have to go all the way down if you don't want to. But if you want to, you can try it. Okay, so we're in mountain pose. And we step our right foot back. We're on railroad tracks. Feet are wide, but they're facing the same way. Legs are both long and strong. Hands on hips. So root into your feet, root into your body. Integrate those two halves. Lower half is strong, upper half is strong. And they're working together, lifting and hinging. And as I come forward, I can feel the front leg more, so I'm putting more to the back. I'm keeping it slow, and I'm going to go all the way down this time. I'll stop at the halfway mark. For those of you who are going to stop at the halfway mark and stay here, and let's all stay in this halfway mark and think about bringing your back hip forward and your front hip back. And as you do that, then you can make the rest of the way down. And that can help you keep things nice and rooted and even. And then as you're ready, root into those feet. Use the blocks to help you come up. Keep the knees soft. Come all the way up. Come up with the feet and the legs, not that lower back. And then step forward and hang out for a couple of breaths in your mountain. Think about what just happened, what you just learned on that first side again, and apply those lessons to the next round. Because each time we do it, we learn something new and different. Even if we're seasoned yogis and we've done these poses a million times, especially if we're slowing. So I've rooted into my feet, my legs, I've rooted in my body. I'm feeling more of that front leg, so I'm going to stop and ask the back leg to work a little bit more. I'm going to put my hands on my blocks because, you know what, I need my blocks this round. And they come all the way down, so I'm showing you a version coming down with the blocks still in it. And you can bring the blocks down. You can have the hands on the floor if you like. And then as you're ready, root into your feet. If you've got those blocks, you can use them to help you come up. And as you come up, see if you're putting more weight in that front leg. See if you can ask the back leg to participate a little bit more. That keeps your hips even and balanced. And then we can step forward. And we'll shake out the knees. And we'll stand in mountain. Take a couple of breaths in mountain. Root into those corners of your feet. Draw that energy up. Root into your belly. Draw that energy up. And then relax the shoulders. Soften the face. So we've got that up, down motion working. We'll talk more about that next week. Take a nice deep inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth if you feel safe. Let's do that again. Try to make the exhale longer than your inhale. Let's do it one more time as we stay rooted in our feet and rooted into our body. So find those corners, find the legs, draw the belly in, take a nice deep inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Stay nice and rooted as you exhale. So as you exhale, does that reinforce those roots for you? And that's just one of those moments. We have to slow down and examine those little tiny, tiny nuances of yoga. Even though we're like, okay, let's move on. We've got to take the time to examine those nuances because they're huge, huge players in our yoga. Big elements. Okay, so now let's get ready for the last part of our practice. Have everything you need for Shavasana before you get down. So once you get down, have everything nearby so you don't have to get back up. Because once you come down, we're working our energy back down and we won't have to get back up. So we'll start by just sit down. You can use yoga to get down. You can use your blocks to get down. You can use some fancy method, or you can just simply sit down, and we'll meet in what's called staff pose. Have all those props that you might need for our last part. And let's find our way into our staff pose. So I'll turn this way. Okay. All right, so we've talked about our staff pose looking a lot like a mountain pose. It's the same thing, simply we're on the floor and we're hinged at the hips. So find those roots in your feet, even though they don't have anything to connect in. That's harder to do. But if you do that, you can really start to grow and build your staff pose from those feet up. Feel that energy going up the legs. It compels you to draw the belly in and lift the sternum, the ribs away from the hips. And we use these same cues and same ideas in our mountain to build our staff pose. Rooting and lifting up from those roots, not just the ones that we get from the earth, but the ones in our body. Drawing the belly in and lifting and engaging the muscles in the torso all the way around and using the breath. Breath can be very grounding, very rooting. Spend just a few breaths here. What's going on with your inhales and your exhales? And what is that breath doing for your staff pose? And what is your staff pose doing for your breath? So if you're sitting all like this, you're probably not breathing very well. You got to sit up to breathe. Breath and good posture go hand in hand. You can't really breathe very well in bad posture. Okay, now let's do some bridge poses. So I'll turn back around. Take your time lying back. And as you lie back, knees bent, feet on the floor. And this is pretty much a bridge prep. Okay? Couple things you can do. If your feet are right next to each other, that's fine as long as the knees are as well. If the feet are apart, the knees need to be apart. So make sure the feet and knees are equal distance apart. And find your feet. Once you've done that, once you've found your general shape, find those feet, find those corners, draw that energy up the legs, draw the belly in, feel a sense of lift in your chest even though you're on the floor, and root into the floor with your arms and your hands. And so you're bracing yourself against the earth with your hands, your arms, and your head. And then when you're ready, keep rooting at all those points and lift up your torso. Lift up your whole torso. The bum, the hips, the back, the ribs, the belly, the chest. And whenever you're ready, keep rooted in those root points and come back down. So really feel your feet, feel your head, feel your arms on the ground. Feel that bracing point, that bracing feeling in all parts of your bridge. So we'll do however many you want. You can stay down for however long you want. And then when you're ready, find those root points, draw in to those root points and lift up from them. And keep those root points in mind. So as you lift up, don't lose the feeling in those feet. And don't lose the feeling in the head and the arms. And maybe actually increase that feeling as you lift up higher. And try to use an exhale and keep those root points good and firm as you come back down. And do as many as you want, stay up as long as you want, rest as long as you want. And after you've done a few, you may want to do a little bit of counter work. So here's some counter work ideas. You can do some windshield wipers and bring your knees from side to side. That's a nice way to release the hips and the lower back and the core muscles. And you can also come into an Apanasana, wind relief, and bring the knees into the chest. And you can do that. And we'll spend about, let's see how we're doing on time. Let's spend 2 more minutes exploring our bridges. And there are lots of other things you can do. So we've kept them pretty simple, but you can go more advanced. You can take your hands and interlace the fingers and bring them underneath the bum. And what that does is that compels the shoulders to rotate in and root into the floor more. So just bringing those hands underneath has a huge effect on the rooting aspects of this bridge. The shoulders become much big players in the other half of our bridge. And remember to keep control no matter what version of bridge you have to come down. And I'll show you one other version. You can always inhale up, exhale down. Inhale up, exhale down. Maybe you don't want stillness and static poses. Maybe you need a little bit more movement, because sustaining those poses take a lot of energy. So if you're tired, sometimes this is all I've got, just going back and forth, and that's enough. I'm stabilizing my hips, I'm keeping them aligned, I'm building the muscles around the hip joints. Really nice hip stabilizer, these bridge poses. Okay, so let's all extend our legs out for a couple of breaths and kind of shake the legs out. Shake them out, shake them out, shake them out. And then bend them again. And then put your right ankle on your left knee. Right ankle on left knee. And then put your right hand on that right knee and start to press it away a little bit. And then if you can, take both hands and interlace them around the leg that's on the floor, and maybe pick that foot up and bring that structure into your body. And you can extend that upper leg. And for some of you, just staying here and reaching for it is enough. So if you can't pick it up and bring it towards you, it's okay. You can do plenty of work here. And again, you don't have to extend the leg if you don't want to. So there are all sorts of options here. Nice little hip stretch, nice stretch in your glute muscles. It's really good for sciatica. And then when you're ready, bring that structure back down to the floor. Bring your arms out to the side. And then twist to the left so that your right foot comes down on the floor. So you're in a twist. And you can look over your opposite shoulder. And notice the ground, notice the root power, notice the foot that's on the floor, notice the arms and the legs. You're bracing yourself as you sustain and maintain your twist. And that might help you release a little bit more. Rooting into the earth helps that release action. And then when you're ready, root into the earth to bring you back up. And then as you're ready, we'll switch sides. So that foot comes down. Now the other foot comes up, and hang out here for a couple of breaths. And then as you're ready, take that same side hand and press gently on that knee, opening up this hip, that top hip. And that might be enough for you. And reaching, that might be enough for you. Or picking it up off the floor. See what you got. Try to keep I just caught myself doing this. Try to keep the back of your head on the floor. Face is parallel with the ceiling as you do all this, because we don't want to create strain in our necks as we relieve our hip tension. We don't want to sacrifice one area for another. And then as you're ready, we can bring that structure back down. And then we can bring the arms out to the sides, brace yourself against the earth as you bring that leg structure down to the side, and that top foot makes contact with the floor. It roots down onto the floor. Root your upper back and your arms and your shoulders as you turn and look over that shoulder, and breathe through it. And feel that foot that's on the floor. Feel the hands. Feel the arms. Feel that brace power, and note how it allows you to release those joints. And then root into that bracing power to bring you back to the center. And then as you're ready, we can bring that foot down. And let's hang out here for a couple of breaths. Maybe do a little bit of windshield wipering. And if you do that, you might want to bring your feet a little bit further away from the body. And then as you're ready, you can bring things in for a few breaths and give your lower back, the sacrum, a nice little massage. Might really want it after those sacrum-related stretches we just did. And then as you're ready, we can come back to center. Maybe squeeze the knees a little bit more. Maybe do a happy baby from here if you'd like. It's a really fun thing to do. You can really examine your roots here and feel how the back is giving you that power to open those hips and go from side to side. Maybe take a couple more breaths. Well, definitely you're going to take some more breaths, but maybe you'll take a few quality, focused, driven breaths. And then as we're ready, bit by bit, stretch out and take a few breaths to kind of situate yourself and snuggle in. Maybe engage the muscles and release a few times. And then just release into the floor. Release into that unwavering stability that the earth is giving you. Feel your connection between your body and the earth, and your connection to your surroundings. Notice what's going on with your breathing. Soften the body. Soften the breath. Quiet the thoughts. Notice. And then as you're ready, start to deepen your breathing. And start to wriggle your fingers and your toes. Take a few bigger breaths. Let the exhales kind of travel out of the arms, the hands, the fingers, the legs, the feet, the toes. Notice how that can start to wake you up. And as you're ready, bend your knees, feet on the floor, and stay here for a breath or two. So we don't want to rush it. And then we'll bring our knees to the right. They say go to the right. It's more calming to come up from the right, less shocking. And that's why we come up nice and slow, because we don't want to take our bodies quickly out of that rest and digest mode of thinking that we've got. We want to keep an imprint of what we just established. We don't want it to go away by bolting up. So take the time to once again build a good solid seat. Find your roots. Root into your seat, perhaps your blanket, your prop. Root into the strength of your body by drawing your belly in and lifting your heart. And then let those shoulders and knees relax. Let's have our hands first open, receiving the energy. You take a few breaths with your hands open. Notice how that feels. And then put your hands down, rooting a little bit more on those legs. And take a few breaths here. And notice if there's a different sensation. And then as you're ready, let's bring our hands to heart center. May you all be safe, may you all be happy, and may you all be free from suffering. It's a nice feel-good prayer that I like to say at the end. I'll say it again. May you all be safe, may you all be happy, and may you all be free from suffering. Namaste.